Hi everyone, LJ Anderson here. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of Kingdom's Hope by Chuck Black. So this book is the second in a series that I have already done the first review of. And today I want to not rehash anything. So I will not actually go into some of the problems I have with this book. I'll briefly touch on them. But I won't expand upon them like I did in the first book. If you want to know more about the problem that I bring up, it's one big problem that I bring up, I will make sure to link the first video and you can go watch that. The series is taking the Bible and is applying a level of allegory to it. And it's a story of kings, of a king, a prince, and knights. And it's, like I said, the Bible in parable form, basically. This particular book goes through from Moses to Nehemiah, so it's a pretty broad range. And one of the things that I really liked about it is that it actually did a really good job of showing how fickle the Israelites were in this time frame. There's a lot of following God, or the king in this case, but this is followed by a lot of, we're going to follow a human, a normal person, we're going to have our own king, we're going to do all of these things. I mean, if you know the biblical narrative, you see that pretty well here. That said, one of the things that kicked me out of the book a little bit was the massive amount of time that was taken in one book. So we have Moses to Nehemiah. We're talking hundreds of years in actuality, but in this book it's less than 20 years, I would guess. We don't actually get a timeline, but it's short, and that's difficult to believe. Well, the stuff that's in the book is hard to believe that this all happened in that amount of time, just because it's so much that he's packing into one book. And it actually gets to a pet peeve that I have with a lot of Christians, but this also includes pastors and even like professors and stuff. Will, like, unless they're an Old Testament professor, Old Testament pastor of some sort, we have, as Christians, we have the tendency to focus on the New Testament a lot. And in this case, we have, 4 books that are devoted to the New Testament. So books 1 and 2 are Old Testament, and then books 3 through 6 are all New Testament stuff. And that's interesting to me because it should be flipped. The Old Testament has, 3/4 of the content, the word count of the Bible is in the Old Testament, and you really can't understand the New Testament in a truly meaningful way without the Old Testament. So I have this pet peeve that we as Christians don't give a proper amount of weight to the Old Testament, and this book demonstrates that pretty well. And it's a little unfair to be picky with Chuck Black here, because, we all do it to some extent. Typically, I mean, the average person, the average Christian is going to do this to some extent. And that's because the New Testament feels more relevant to us, and that it's targeted towards us, rather than the Old Testament, which was based, around Israel. But like I said, we can't really understand the New Testament without the Old. And there's a lot in the New Testament that demonstrates that. For example, Hebrews is all about how Jesus is the fulfillment of many of the Old Testament prophecies, and even the Old Testament, like, sacrificial system, it's been replaced, but Jesus is a sacrifice like that system. He has taken our place on the cross, and he's died where we deserve to die. He didn't deserve to die, but he took our place. So that's a pet peeve that I have with, well, this book, but in general. And I think that we would do a really good, or that we would be really benefited by giving proper weight to the Old Testament. I'm not even necessarily saying that we need to go, 3/4 Old Testament, 1/4 New Testament, but even 50-50. If you read a New Testament book, your next book probably should be an Old Testament book. If that makes sense, like, we should really make sure that we're reading the Old Testament and teaching from the Old Testament and studying it, all the good stuff. So I guess that's my rant, for lack of a better term, on something that this book brought up. It's a great book. I actually really enjoy it. I'm all into fantasy. Of course, it's a kid's book, or it's designed for kids, and so it's a very easy read. I found that I don't actually have an issue with that. I can enjoy a kid's book just as well as I can an adult book. I don't know what that says about me, but, and then I guess the last thing that I want to hit on briefly, and this actually for me brings down, like, if we're talking to 5 stars for this, out of 5 stars, this would bring it down to a 4-star, and that's what I did with the first book too, is that the lack of magic. This book doesn't change the first book. So the first book was completely devoid of magic. It was very obvious that Chuck Black had not wanted magic at all. And I think I said in the last one, he had said that he didn't want magic. I haven't confirmed that, but I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. Don't quote me on it. That said, magic is a problem, or the lack of magic is a problem when we're talking about a supernatural being. And I said I wasn't going to talk about this, so I'm going to stop talking about it. But it's a problem, and it's still in this book, and it's, I have read this series before. It goes all the way through to the end of book 6, and I believe it also, crosses over into the, the spin-off series. And so it's a problem, and it actually affects my my rating, because it really damages or attacks the nature of God, and it's something that we got to be careful with. So there's that. Other than that, though, I really enjoy it. It's a super fast read. It's really easy to read. At the back of the book, there's questions again about each of the chapters, and so it's great for reading through with your kids and getting to engage in the Bible through a parable, and it's a great way to bond with your kids and also have them learn something, which I love. So anyway, if you liked this video, please click the like button and subscribe. And until next time, God bless.